The clock on my nightstand glowed an eerie 2:47 a.m. when a soft clatter echoed from downstairs. My heart slammed against my ribs as I grabbed the old baseball bat from under the bed, the one I'd kept there since moving to this Chicago apartment alone. Creeping down the stairs with my phone in one hand ready to dial 911, I flicked on the kitchen light and froze. There she was, Brielle, my ex-girlfriend whom my family had forced me to abandon 5 years ago, standing by the counter with a knife in her trembling hand and terror in her eyes. Brielle. My voice cracked like thin ice. The bat slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the cold tile. She didn't bolt or swing the knife. She just stared back, her dark hair plastered to her forehead, jacket ripped at the shoulder, a fresh bruise swelling along her left cheekbone. This wasn't the sharp, fearless investigative journalist I'd fallen for during our senior year at Northwestern. This was someone who looked like she'd been running through hell and had finally hit a dead end, my kitchen. "What the hell are you doing here?" I whispered, but my feet stayed rooted. The air felt thick, charged with 5 years of silence I'd tried to bury under 80-hour workweeks at the firm. She lowered the knife slowly, placing it on the granite island like it burned her palm. "Quinn, I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go. They're coming for me, and if I don't warn you tonight, your whole world is going to burn with mine." Her voice shook, but her eyes, those hazel eyes that once made me believe love could conquer anything, held steady. I wanted to scream at her to leave, to call the cops, to pretend this was just a nightmare. Instead, I locked the back door behind her and pulled the blinds shut. We stood there for what felt like forever. Two women who had once shared everything now reduced to strangers in the glow of a single overhead light. I poured her a glass of water because my hands needed something to do. She drank it in 3 gulps, then told me the bare bones. A fatal accident at the family-owned manufacturing plant my father's company ran in the suburbs. 3 workers dead because safety protocols had been ignored. Brielle had been digging into it for months as a freelance journalist. She'd found proof of a cover-up. Emails, falsified reports, payoffs. But someone inside the firm had leaked her name. Now the police wanted her for questioning over a supposed hit-and-run that conveniently happened the same night she met a source. And worse, someone had old photos and messages from our relationship. They were about to drop them everywhere to paint her as a bitter ex with an agenda, dragging me, rising star corporate defense lawyer at the very firm under fire, down with her. My stomach twisted. 5 years ago my parents had discovered us through a single careless text. My mother's face when she showed my father the screenshot still haunted me. "This ends now," he'd said, voice like steel. They gave me an ultimatum. Cut her off completely or lose the trust fund, the internship at the firm, the entire future they'd mapped out since I was born. I chose the path of least resistance. I told Brielle it was over in a coffee shop near campus, watching her heart break in real time. She left Chicago 2 weeks later. I threw myself into work, dated men my mother approved of, and convinced myself I'd done what was necessary. Now she was back, smelling of rain and fear, begging me to believe her. "I have copies of everything on a drive," she said, pulling a small black USB from her pocket. "If I go down alone, they'll bury the truth. But if they tie me to you publicly, your career, your family name, everything you sacrifice for is gone." I stared at the drive like it was a live grenade. Part of me wanted to shove her out the door and pretend none of this was happening. The other part, the part that still remembered how safe her arms felt, knew I couldn't. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, probably unrelated, but they made my skin crawl. I hid her in the guest room, told her to stay quiet until morning, and lay awake until dawn wondering how one night could unravel the life I'd spent years rebuilding. By sunrise I'd called in sick for the first time in 3 years. Brielle emerged looking a little less like a fugitive after a hot shower, wearing one of my old Northwestern hoodies that still fit her perfectly. We sat at the kitchen island again, this time with coffee. She filled in more details. The firm's lawyers, my colleagues, were already spinning the accident as worker error. My own father had signed off on the final report. If Brielle went public with her evidence, the lawsuit from the victims' families would explode into a multimillion-dollar nightmare. But someone wanted her silenced first. The hit-and-run accusation was just the opening act. "They'll leak our old texts next," she said quietly. "The ones where we talked about moving in together, about coming out after graduation. It'll look like I'm using you for revenge." I rubbed my temples. My promotion to senior associate was supposed to be announced next month. Dad had already bragged about it at the country club. If any whisper of our past surfaced, the partners would see me as a liability. I could lose everything I'd bled for. Yet looking at Brielle, seeing the determination mixed with exhaustion in her face, I couldn't shake the feeling that turning her away would be the real betrayal. "You can stay here today," I said finally. "But we figure this out together. No more running." She reached across the island and squeezed my hand once, quick and grateful, before pulling away. That single touch sent a current through me I hadn't felt in years. Outside, the city woke up, traffic humming, unaware that inside my quiet apartment 2 women were standing on the edge of a cliff. I didn't know yet how far we would fall. By midday, the first crack appeared. My phone buzzed with a Google alert. Whistleblower journalist linked to factory tragedy. The article didn't name Brielle yet, but it quoted anonymous sources saying the reporter had been harassing company executives. I showed it to her while she paced the living room. She cursed softly. "They're moving faster than I thought." We spent the afternoon going through her files on my laptop. The evidence was damning. Internal memos ordering supervisors to skip safety inspections to meet deadlines, payments to inspectors, even a deleted email chain from my father himself. My stomach turned. I'd defended the firm in smaller cases before, never knowing how deep the rot went. The doorbell rang at 3. I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was just the doorman with a package, but the paranoia was already setting in. Brielle stayed out of sight while I signed for it. When I came back, she was staring at her phone, face pale. "Anonymous tip just hit the local news tip line. They're saying I caused the hit and run to silence a witness." My editor texted, "He's pulling my byline until this clears." Her voice cracked on the last word. I wanted to tell her it would be okay, but I knew better. In Chicago's tight legal circles, reputation was currency. Mine was about to be collateral damage. We talked for hours that afternoon, the kind of raw conversation we'd never had after the breakup. She told me how she'd stayed in the city, working freelance, always circling the story that had cost us everything. I told her about the men I dated to keep my parents happy, how none of them ever measured up because they weren't her. The air between us grew thick with things left unsaid. When she reached for my hand again, I let her hold it longer this time. It felt dangerous and right all at once. That evening my mother called. I almost didn't answer. "Quinn, darling, your father heard you called in sick. Everything all right at the firm?" Her tone was light, but I knew the undercurrent. I lied smoothly, said it was just a migraine. She launched into her usual update about the club gala, and how proud they were of my upcoming promotion. I hung up feeling like I'd swallowed glass. Brielle watched from the couch. "They still don't know about us?" I shook my head. "They think I grew out of it." She gave a bitter laugh. "Funny how love becomes a phase when it threatens the family fortune." Night fell and the first media van appeared across the street. Not for us yet, just routine crime scene coverage, but it was enough to make us kill all the lights. We sat in the dark living room, shoulders touching, sharing takeout Thai food like old times. Brielle's knee brushed mine and neither of us moved away. The tension in my chest was part fear, part something warmer I refused to name. Before we turned in, she whispered, "Thank you for not throwing me out." I wanted to say I'd never stopped caring, but the words stuck. Instead, I just nodded and closed the guest room door behind her. Sleep didn't come easy. I lay there replaying every choice that led us here. The ultimatum, the silence, the years I spent proving I was the perfect daughter. By morning, the news had Brielle's name. Investigative journalist Brielle Harlan sought in connection with factory tragedy cover-up allegations. My firm's PR team would be in full damage control. I knew what came next. They'd want me to distance myself. The question was whether I had the courage to refuse. Brielle emerged looking determined despite the dark circles under her eyes. "We go on the offensive," she said. "But I won't ask you to risk everything unless you're sure." I looked at her and realized I wasn't sure of anything anymore, except that losing her twice would break me in ways my career never could. The family confrontation hit like a freight train on Tuesday morning. My father's town car pulled up outside my building at 7 sharp. I watched from the window as he climbed out, jaw set, the same expression he wore when he delivered the ultimatum 5 years ago. Brielle stayed hidden in the bedroom while I met him downstairs in the lobby. "We need to talk," he said without greeting. We walked to a nearby cafe where he ordered black coffee and got straight to it. Your name is being whispered in connection with that journalist. Old photos are circulating on private channels, pictures of the two of you. Explain. My mouth went dry. Someone had already leaked cropped images from our college days. Us laughing at a protest, holding hands on the lakefront. Nothing explicit, but the context was clear. Dad slid his phone across the table. The subject line on the anonymous email read, "Distraction Campaign?" I felt the ground shift beneath me. He leaned in, voice low. The partners are nervous. This lawsuit could bankrupt the company if it goes class action. If you're tied to the woman trying to bury us, your career ends today. Fix it. The threat hung between us like smoke. He didn't say the words again, but I heard them choose. I returned to the apartment shaking. Brielle took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. It was the first time we'd touched like that in years, and I let myself lean into it, breathing in the faint scent of my own shampoo on her hair. They know, I whispered. She held me tighter. Then we decide together what we're willing to lose. That afternoon the firm called an emergency meeting via video. My boss, my uncle on my mother's side, asked point blank if I had any personal connection to Brielle Harlan. I lied and said no, but my voice wavered. The partners exchanged glances. Promotion talk was tabled indefinitely. By evening the local news ran a segment. Mystery woman linked to scandal. Is corporate defense attorney Quinn involved? They didn't have proof yet, but the speculation was enough. My phone exploded with messages from colleagues, distant relatives, even an old college roommate asking if the rumors were true. Brielle and I sat on the couch watching the report, her head eventually resting on my shoulder. The contact felt like oxygen after years underwater. She spoke softly into the quiet. I never stopped loving you. Even when you ended it, I understood why. But I can't ask you to throw away the life you built. I turned to face her, our foreheads almost touching. Maybe the life I built was never really mine. That night we stayed up planning. She had contacts at smaller outlets willing to run her evidence if she could get protection. I had access to internal firm documents that could corroborate her story. Every decision felt like stepping onto thin ice. Protect my job and betray the truth, or stand with Brielle and watch my world collapse. When the first paparazzo appeared outside at midnight, flashing cameras through the blinds, I knew the clock was ticking. Brielle squeezed my hand in the dark. Whatever happens, I'm not running this time if you're with me. For the first time in 5 years I believed we might actually have a chance. Wednesday brought the lawsuit filing. The victims' families sued the company for wrongful death, naming Brielle as a key witness in their motion. My firm immediately moved to discredit her, and my name appeared in the public docket as potential conflict of interest. I stared at the court documents on my laptop while Brielle cooked eggs in the kitchen, acting like this was normal domestic life. The normalcy felt surreal. We were two women hiding from the world, yet every shared glance carried the weight of years apart. My mother showed up unannounced at noon, letting herself in with the spare key I'd forgotten to collect. She took one look at Brielle and froze. So it's true. Her voice was ice. She didn't yell. She never did. Instead she listed everything I would lose. The family trust, invitations to every important event, the respect of the entire social circle. This woman almost destroyed you once, she said, eyes flicking to Brielle. Don't let her finish the job. Brielle stood tall beside me. I'm not here to destroy anything. I'm here because the truth matters. My mother laughed bitterly. Truth doesn't pay the bills, dear. She left with a final warning. Choose your side carefully, Quinn. Some doors don't reopen. The media storm intensified after that. Outlets ran side-by-side photos, old college shots of Brielle and me next to current headshots. Lesbian love triangle and factory tragedy, one tabloid screamed. My inbox filled with interview requests and hate mail. At the firm I was placed on administrative leave, pending investigation. Colleagues I'd considered friends suddenly couldn't meet my eyes in the hallway. The isolation was crushing. Yet in the apartment Brielle and I grew closer. We talked late into the night about everything we'd missed. Her failed relationships, my empty ones, the nights we'd both wondered what if. One evening she kissed my forehead softly before bed. Nothing more, but it lingered like a promise. The next morning I made the call that changed everything. I contacted a rival firm known for taking on whistleblowers and offered to consult on the case pro bono. Brielle's eyes widened when I told her, "You're really doing this?" I nodded. I'm tired of choosing the safe path. The decision felt like jumping off a cliff, but for the first time the fear was mixed with something like freedom. Thursday the accident happened. Someone slashed my tires and left a note under the wiper. "Stay out of it." Brielle found the car first when we tried to leave for a safe house her editor had arranged. We stood on the sidewalk staring at the damage while neighbors gawked. The police came, took a report, but I could see they didn't believe it was random. Back inside, Brielle paced. "This is escalation. They're scared." I was scared too, but something in me had shifted. I refused to let fear win. We spent the day locked in strategy sessions. I reviewed every internal memo I could access through my still active credentials. Risky but necessary. Brielle recorded a video statement detailing everything she knew. We planned to release it through an independent outlet the next morning. The decision to go public carried the highest stakes yet. My father called once, voice trembling with rage I'd never heard. "If you do this, you're no longer my daughter." The words landed like blows, but I didn't hang up. I told him I loved him but couldn't live with the lie anymore. When I ended the call, Brielle wrapped her arms around me from behind. We stood like that for a long time. Two women holding each other while the world outside tried to tear us apart. That night the power flickered. Probably nothing, but we slept in the same room anyway, fully clothed, just for the comfort of another heartbeat nearby. In the dark she whispered, "Whatever comes tomorrow, I'm proud of you." I turned toward her voice. "I'm proud of us." The reconnection felt fragile and fierce, like something reborn under fire. By dawn we were ready. The video dropped at 8 a.m. Within an hour it had 1 million views. My phone rang nonstop, reporters, the firm, my mother. I let every call go to voicemail. For the first time I chose Brielle without hesitation. Friday morning the courtroom doors opened for the preliminary hearing. I walked in beside Brielle as her pro bono co-counsel, wearing the same power suit I'd once used to defend the company now on trial. Cameras flashed outside. Inside, my father sat in the gallery, stone-faced. The judge called the session to order and the real battle began. I stood and presented the evidence Brielle and I had compiled, documents, timelines, the emails that proved the cover-up. My voice never wavered even when my uncle glared from the defense table. Cross-examination was brutal. They tried to paint Brielle as unstable, me as conflicted and compromised by our past relationship. I answered every question truthfully. Yes, we had been together. Yes, my family had forced us apart. No, that didn't invalidate the evidence. The courtroom buzzed. By the time the judge recessed for lunch, the atmosphere had shifted. Reporters outside shouted questions about love and justice. My father caught my eye as he left. He didn't speak, but the disappointment in his gaze said enough. That afternoon the firm announced my termination. My mother texted a single line. "You made your choice." The words stung, but standing beside Brielle outside the courthouse as cameras rolled, I felt lighter than I had in years. The victims' families approached us with tears, thanking us for fighting when no one else would. Brielle took my hand in full view of everyone. The gesture went viral within minutes. Weeks later the company settled for an 8-figure sum. Brielle's name was cleared. Mine became synonymous with whistleblower courage in legal circles. I started my own small practice focused on corporate accountability. We moved into a new apartment together. Slower this time, building something real on honest ground. The scars from family silence and media frenzy remained, but so did the strength we found in each other. True or false? In a crisis, protecting the person you love is always worth losing your career and family approval?